As Jimmy Vasser searches for an IndyCar championship, he can look back to two separate individual laps that made all the difference. On the last lap at Mid-Ohio, Al Unser Jr. second in the championship, crashed and went pointless. Teammates Zanardi and Vasser finished 1-2. Could things get any worse for Unser? The answer came 1 week later. In total control of the race and only 2 turns from victory, an explosion devastated his engine and perhaps his championship hopes. Taking the win, Michael Andretti became a contender. But Jimmy Vasser is clearly in control, with the rest chasing. Can he clinch the crown today, or can he be caught? From Vancouver, Canada, it's the Molson Indy, the IndyCars, with just 2 races to go in their quest for the championship. And that battle for the championship is very tight here today. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Vasser can clinch the championship, but there are 4 contenders right now. In so many scenarios, you can't review all of them, but we will track it throughout the day. But for Jimmy Vasser, Danny Sullivan, how does he have to drive it?
He has to be very smart all day long. He's got Al Unser Jr. starting right behind him. His main focus should be staying in front of Al Jr.
The track here can be somewhat unforgiving.
There's tough spots around here to pass. You've got to be clean when you make those passes, no mistakes.
And there are some guys who made a few mistakes a couple of weeks ago at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and we'd like to review that for you. The situation began right at the very start of the race when Alex Zanardi made contact with Gil DeFerrin, and it put DeFerrin out of the race. They fined Zanardi $20,000. And then Andre Ribeiro got into Greg Moore, put Moore out of the race. A little bit later, Ribeiro was into the side of Blundell and took both Blundell and Gugelmin out of the race. As a result, Ribeiro fined $40,000, $20,000 of which suspended pending the outcome of the new races. And then Paul Tracy got into the side of Parker Johnstone and flipped him upside down. Now, Paul Tracy was fined $40,000. Again, they suspended $20,000 of that pending his conduct in the next 2 events. So those are the stories leading into today's race. Here's the grid. Alex Zanardi shattered the track record for his 5th pole of the year. Michael Andretti, a 2-time winner here in 91 and 92, starts alongside. In row 2, it's Bobby Rahal, who scored a 2nd place at Elkhart, his best finish of the season, and his teammate Brian Herta on the outside. In row 3, Jimmy Vasser, the points leader, who has finished every race this season, and Paul Tracy. In row 4, Al Unser Jr., his last win came here 1 year ago for the 4-time Vancouver winner, and Andre Ribeiro. In row 5, Mauricio Gugelmin and Gil DeFerrin, who finished 2nd in his first start here last year. In row 6, Adrian Fernandez and Scott Pruitt. In the 7th row, Greg Moore and Christian Fittipaldi. Row 8, Robbie Gordon, the 2nd place finisher here 2 years ago, and Raul Boisel. In row 9, Mark Blundell and Parker Johnstone. Row 10, Jan Magnussen and Juan Fangio. In row 11, Stefan Johansson, who scored 6 points, 6 in the last 7 races, and Davy Jones. In row 12, Scott Goodyear and Michel Jourdain Jr., 4th IndyCar start of the season. Row 13, PJ Jones and Roberto Moreno, and Hero will start alone all the way in the back. So today, this race, closing down to the end of the season, 100 laps, 170.3 miles. Al Unser Jr. holds the race record here, and the pit stops are expected at lap 22 to 35. But pit strategy here can be more than a little fascinating, and for the teams, more than a little nerve-wracking. Here's the track, Danny.
Well, as you can see, there's 4 spots to pass, but 3 of them are danger zones. They're really tricky. The way you got to come into them, it's narrow, they're slippery, and everybody's going in there as hard as they can. You've got to make a very clean pass to get by there.
This week, they had a test session for all of the IndyCars at Laguna Seca. Michael Andretti got into the wall hard. You can see his teammate Christian Fittipaldi came up alongside. Danny, you've talked to him, and he's obviously somewhat okay. He's here racing, but how much pain is he in?
Well, he says that he's pretty good. He's about 90%. But what's going to really happen there, Paul, is if the adrenaline's flowing, if he's racing somebody, he's not going to feel anything. He's going to be focusing on that race. And I think the races we've seen here, he's going to be pretty busy all day long. So I do not believe it's going to be a factor.
He had a nice smile on his face before he climbed in the car, though. So it looks like he was ready not only to run well here, but of course he can be a factor in this championship. And if he wins the next 2 races, he very definitely could come away as the champion. So much on the line here today. This is perhaps the key race of the year, certainly is to this point, with Jimmy Vasser having an opportunity to take his very first championship. You can see it's a crystal clear day here in Vancouver. Field strung out just a little bit as they come there, and it will take a bit for them to tighten up in the back of the field. We'll see if they give them a green flag as they make the turn onto the pit straight and head for the start-finish line. Michael Andretti on the outside, Alex Zanardi on the inside. They've got him aligned. We go green, we're racing. Zanardi jumps right off at the start. Rest of the field through safely. Michael into second, then Rahal, then Herta. Boy, look at Tracy back in there. Anybody wondering about what condition Tracy's in? This is the hairpin. Very tough place.
It is, but everybody got through there clean. I think everybody realizes the importance of not knocking a wing off or doing anything, any damage, flat spot in the tire. Look at them all bunched up. They decided to wait, I guess, through that first corner before they're going to make an attempt.
Well, remember last year they didn't wait, and in that first corner they ended up with a red flag. So we're past that possibility now. Nobody was hurt last year, but it stopped the race for about 45 minutes and slowed everything down. Michael swings way wide in his pursuit. You're looking back from Jimmy Vasser's car at Al Unser Jr. And of course, Vasser started just ahead of Al Unser Jr. and it is the fight between first and second in the championship.
Well, Al's going to pick his point. Of course, he's got to go in there. It doesn't do him any good to make a pass on Vasser and take himself or Vasser out. He's got to make a good, clean pass. He needs to score points.
Look how close little Al comes to the wall as he comes off. Now cycles just a bit outside, looking for racing room.
That's another passing zone right there. He's going to take a look up the inside to let him know he's there.
Alex Zanardi unchallenged by Michael at the moment.
Oh, you saw him slide it a little bit. Now remember, those Firestones, they go off a little bit. They've got a little softer tire. They've got more grip. But if you slide it around and you start blistering a tire, he's going to pay the price before that pit stop comes.
Well, as we watch this battle at the front of the field, which is also a tire battle, Firestone's on the Zanardi car, Goodyear is on Michael Andretti's car. Goodyear has really taken a step forward in terms of their tire, and they seem to be getting close to equal.
That's right. Look at that shot. You can see the angle of the car come through there, and everybody's sliding. Notice Zanardi's not getting away from Michael or Rahal. Bobby's been on a tear a little bit of late. He hasn't won one, but he finished right behind Michael at Elkhart Lake.
Michael Andretti is sitting now right behind the leader. Bobby Rahal is there too. Jan Beekes?
Yes, I can add to what you've been talking about with tires, Paul. All of the Firestone runners are starting on their primary compound, which was the tires they ran in Detroit. Goodyear has brought new front construction tires here that allow the cars to turn better into the corners and handle better mid-corner. Everyone is on Goodyear's primary tire except for Paul Tracy. He's on the softer ones, and Davy Jones. Maybe that's why Paul Tracy made a move early.
Report of contract between Gugelman and Fernandez. Apparently both have continued on. We'll track that for you. You're on board, of course, with Bobby Rahal. New livery colors that they debuted last week, and they decided to go beyond the anniversary and actually keep them on the car. He is third place. That's the battle for the lead just ahead of him. In fact, first, second, and third are very close together.
Yeah, and Bobby's playing a smart game here. He's going to sit right behind them, stay as close as he can. His car's obviously working well, and he's going to sit there and hope for those two guys to make a mistake. One of the things that we've seen, you know, when Zanardi's been on the pole previously, he seems to take off and get a gap and pull away from everybody. Doesn't appear like he's doing that right there. Michael's staying right with him. Oh, look, Zanardi made a mistake. He ran out there wide. He got in too deep. Ran out there, got on the marbles a little bit.
And there's what you've said time and time again. At this track, it only takes the tiniest of mistakes. One, to let somebody past you, and two, to end up against those walls.
That's right. You saw how close he was to the wall. Michael's letting him know he's there. He's going down. See, he wants to keep that pressure on Zanardi. Look at that. See the back end of the car just dart out got to go about 30 to 35 laps on a set of tires. He's doing this early on. He's going to use those tires up.
Again, two different lines as first, second, and third still running together. We will try to give you as much onboard camera as we can, but they go under a lot of underpasses, and that disrupts the cameras. So we'll do the best we can with you. 4 laps are complete. Back in Vancouver, nothing has changed here. Michael Andretti continues to chase Alex Zanardi, and Bobby Rahal is putting the pressure on from third place.
Well, Bobby is. He's letting them all know that he's right there. Michael's got to be, of course, looking for the opportunity on Zanardi and try to close off those mirrors so he doesn't pay attention that Bobby's right behind him. It's a tough situation, but of course one that he's been in a lot before.
Oh, Bobby Rahal, the old professor, though, is just sitting there letting him know, I'm here, one little error, and I'm right in front of you.
That's right. And also something, Bobby's very good on equipment. He nurses that equipment. This track, as everybody's been saying, is saying that it's rough around here, so he's going to have to nurse that rear end of that car to save it for the end of the race.
At the Molson Indy Vancouver, watching now, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Nothing's changed in the order. Dropping back, taking a look at this battle that's tightening up. Herta, Vassar, and Al Unser Jr. And, of course, between Vassar and Al Unser Jr., we're talking the first 2 cars in the championship. Leader already closing down on Harrow. Boy, this could be a factor right here. But you still have to be now. Hero sees him, lets first and second by.
Bobby's going to get in underneath him.
So first, second, and third passed. Jan Vigas?
Well, Danny was talking about how good Bobby Rahal is on the equipment, and that's what he feels will be his ace in the hole today. He says, I have the experience. I know what it takes here. I'm going to take it easy, but I think you guys also hit it right on the head. And that is that Bobby Rahal wants to stay close enough to where he can pressure both Michael Andretti and Alex Zanardi into making a mistake. Bobby Rahal says the key here is don't run into anything. Take care of your car, and like Danny said, he's got a lot of experience doing just that.
First, second, and third have pulled away from the rest of the field. Brian Herta, of course, is the 4th place car, and he sits back some. Under the BC place, the overpass here, one of the areas that the onboard cameras can't shoot the signal out of, but a fascinating track here, very tight, has produced some great racing, and it's a time of the year that the equipment all seems to come fairly even. We've said that with the tires. Usually by now, all of the parts that have been produced for some cars have now filtered down through the entire field, and so we get some even racing. Look at the group lining up behind Herta and Vassar.
It looks like little Al lost a little bit to Jimmy Vassar there. See that little gap? That's probably was dictated by traffic, but look at this. Gilles DeFerrin in that bright yellow car coming up on Paul Tracy. Ooh, locking him up. That hurts him big time because you keep flat spotting those tires. They'll get a little square on you and make a very uncomfortable drive around here. And this track is already rough enough.
I think that bunch there was all as a result of them trying to get around Hero and all running so close together. So he bunched them up. You got another glimpse of him as another group came in just behind him. And we do have to remember that there are drivers in this field. We've already mentioned them who are under observation. Now, Danny, you're under observation. What does that do to your driving? Do you second think everything?
Well, you think about it a little bit when you're going to make a pass. Well, remember, these guys are professionals. They've got to go out there and still race. And everybody at this stage has a little bit of different agenda than the other guys. Some guys are battling for points, some for positions in the championship. Some guys have no championship or no chance. They just want an outright win. They don't care. And some guys are looking for drives, so they're looking to impress some of those team owners who are shopping.
Look at this view from Robbie Gordon's. It's actually on the little winglet, what do they call the flugelette that's down on those cars. Look how close that comes to the wall.
Watch this coming off. Watch here. Watch here. Whoa. And watch here. Whoa. That is close.
I do have a report that Stefan Johansson brushed the wall, but apparently has continued on there. Also, the course workers have been asked to take a look at Roberto Moreno. Someone apparently said they thought they saw a flame there, and so they're checking to make sure that there's not a problem with that car. Well, now they're saying Roberto Moreno will have to come in and answer a black flag. So apparently they've seen something that they want to make sure is safe.
See now, Al Unser Jr. right there just went out of your screen. He's moved back up. He's right behind Jimmy Vasser again.
Right behind him, his teammate Paul Tracy. There he is, and DeFerrin working him hard.
Don't forget, as was reported earlier, is that Paul Tracy is on the softer Goodyears, so he has to make as much as he can at the beginning because they're going to go off a little bit.
Pictures here come from Canadian television, the CBC. Of course, they love to watch their drivers as they are doing here, keeping track of Paul Tracy and the battle with Joe DeFerrin. It's a good little battle, though. And there you look from the top of turn 1 and get a good idea of where the cars are placed and also see how the pits are situated here. Jan?
Paul, you mentioned that Stefan Johansson brushed the wall. The team concurs that he did brush the wall, but they said there is no damage to the car. And in fact, he's running faster laps than he did earlier. So everything's okay with Tony Bettenhausen and Stefan Johansson. Gary, you've got more?
Pulled the side cowling on the left side of Roberto Moreno's car off as he came in. There indeed was fire, apparently a leak of some kind around some of the plumbing. Don't know if it was oil or just what. They quickly extinguished it. Roberto continues to sit in the cockpit and wait and see if he'll get a chance to get back out or whether or not his afternoon is complete.
And there is that fight for the championship as it continues on. Looking back from Jimmy's car, Al Unser Jr. Al's playing it pretty careful.
Well, he's a smart guy around this place. He's won this thing a lot of times. He's playing it fairly smart, but he doesn't want to play it too cautious for too long. He needs to get in front of Vasser, but he doesn't want to make that pass and make a mistake. And Jimmy certainly doesn't want to let him by.
So the fight for the championship is right here at the front. It's the teammate to Vasser and Michael Andretti, the other two players in the championship battle. ESPN Speed World's presentation of the Molson Indy from Vancouver, Canada is brought to you today by Molson Ice. Step outside. By Goodyear, #1 in tires. By Mobil Motor Oil. At Mobil, we've been changing oil for over 125 years. And by Daytona USA, the ultimate motorsports attraction. Things are heating up in Vancouver. There's DeFerrin, but obviously he's well back from where he was when we left you. And here is why. He cooked him hot going into the hairpin.
Yeah, he's trying to make a move on Paul Tracy. Paul was very smart there, waited for him. Gilles, pretty intelligent, didn't try to make that turn, went ahead and went up the escape road. Lost a lot of ground, though.
Yeah, he fell back to 18th. Look at this interval. Now, there's some question. Maybe it was the fact that they lapped Hero again, but there goes Zanardi. There he is. And the interval now back to second place Michael as Zanardi begins to overhaul more traffic is lengthened out now and is almost 5 seconds. There's Michael. Here is Bobby Rahal. First, second, and third.
Well, as we saw, they got stuck in traffic, and this is going to play advantage and disadvantage all day long. You're going to win some and lose some in the traffic. He gained some when he got past Hero, and Michael got held up behind him.
Zanardi the leader, chased by Michael, Bobby Rahal, Herta, Vasser, Unser Jr. Nothing changes up there in the order, though some of the interval has changed. Zanardi is able to pull out some distance, apparently, with Michael trying to get past Hero, who is been now lapped for the second time in the day, and what it's done is given a 5-second cushion between Zanardi and second place Michael Andretti. Also, I noticed a car, at least I thought the nose of a car in the runoff down there by the hairpin, but I'm not sure who it was.
Well, I did too. I almost thought it was Raul Boesel. I couldn't tell, but it looked a little bit like the color on his car. But don't forget, we also saw Zanardi now behind some other cars that he was coming to lap. He's still got to get his way past those. Those guys don't want to just move over while they're having their own race.
And Jimmy Vasser and Al Unser Jr. remain in their fight, first and second in the points. Gary Gerald, you've been tracking the front, though.
Well, I think it's interesting, your top three, and Michael has closed on Zanardi. I don't think it's 5 seconds any longer as they flash by us near pit in. The top three have three different power plants. You've got the Honda with Zanardi, the Ford Cosworth with Andretti, and the Mercedes with Bobby Rahal. All three, in terms of crew chiefs, had expressed different concerns relating to fuel consumption. This track is notoriously tough on fuel. The Mercedes people and the Honda people, I think, more concerned than the Cosworth people. We've already learned that they told Zanardi that he's got to conserve a little bit. They normally expect yellow because of the configuration of this track and incidents. We haven't had yellow thus far. If they get 10 laps of yellow, that erases the fuel concerns. We'll keep an eye on it.
Well, Zanardi's been trying to get around P.J. Jones. This was just a few seconds ago, and it's not as easy as it looked. P.J. apparently was. Oh! Zanardi gets in trouble trying it again.
He tried it in the same spot where he had a problem. This is what we were talking about. It's very difficult to pass it, and they are dangerous spots. He's out. That's his race.
And his championship.
And more than likely his championship.
Alex Zanardi climbs out. He's going to be furious. You saw him. We're just showing you the replay where he tried it once, then he tried it again, and it got him into the wall.
Here he'll come in here. Now he's going to go around the outside. PJ doesn't see him. He's taking the race in line. Boy, he got up there. PJ, I don't think ever saw him on the outside like that. Boy, that was a lucky maneuver. He's going to be very upset. Look at him just pulling that off, throwing his baklava and his, whoa, he's upset.
And a frightening situation when he rolled up like that, almost put his head up into the barrier fence.
Yeah, but you can tell. See the mark on there was a little black mark right on top of his helmet where it looked like it rubbed across something. But he's more upset, not about the incident, but he's upset about the results. Took him out of the championship, took him out of another race win.
He had this race handled in the early laps, certainly had the fastest car on the track, but that incident gives it over to Michael Andretti. Bobby Rahal comes forward into second place. Oh, look at this anger. He's looking for somebody to shakes off his PR guy, Michael Knight.
So he comes in here again, and that's the racing line that Parnelli Jones has taken. But look at this.
Well, and as a result of this and some other debris on the track, they're going to go full course yellow. That means, of course, that the field will bunch up. The pace car will come up. And Mike's trying to say Alex does not want to talk at all. I think Alex does, but everybody would prefer he doesn't. Totally expected under the full course yellow. Everybody comes into the pits as soon as they open. Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, makes a stop. Rahal comes in too. Michael's got to be careful of speed. Look at that crowd coming in.
It's unbelievable. I don't think he's got to worry about the speed limit. He just wants to get past those cars so he can get out in front of the field. Well, he did. He made a good stop. Look who's out second.
Oh, they get all caught up. Rahal comes out. Herta comes out. DeFerrin has to wait.
But it looked like Vasser got out in third spot, which is what he wanted. He wanted to get back out there and look like Al was fourth. I don't know if that's the way they actually made it onto the track, but that's what it appeared.
Once again, on a road course, as we said so many times, Danny, the crew can do often things that you can't on the racetrack by getting you forward with a fast stop.
Well, let me give you a perfect example. Let's say you go in there and make a pit stop and you get it done in 13 seconds and the other guy does it in 15 seconds. That's 2 seconds. Do you know how much ground you have to make up to make 2 seconds on a guy that you're racing against? That's a huge amount.
The shattered car of Zanardi was looking for Rookie of the Year points as well as championship points. Here it is again. Now one before hard hits.
Boy, that was a big accident, but as I said, I think his adrenaline and his anger is going so strong right now. I don't even think he's thinking about the accident. He just realized that from that move how much he lost.
And how smart is PJ Jones staying out? Very safe place. He didn't pit. He's out behind the pace car.
Well, that's true, but as big
he's coming in now.
But as angry as Zanardi is, have you seen PJ Jones? It looks like he can play linebacker, you know, for USC. He's a big fella. I don't think I'd want to take him on, no matter how angry I was.
Italian temper and a strapping American youth. Jan Beekes?
Well, there was a pretty interesting action here during the pit process, and that's because Gilles de Ferran came in when the pits were closed. So the Jim Hall team very carefully remembered that you do not get penalized if you don't do any service. So they waved Gilles de Ferran on. But here's caused the problem. Michael Andretti came in first, down on the pits, the very pit in. Bobby Rahal came here on pit out. The problem is they're all receiving service. Bobby Rahal does a quick stop, but in the middle of that, Gilles de Ferran now comes in because he was that much farther behind the leaders. So poor Gilles de Ferran is trying to come into the pits while everybody else is trying to burn out and pick up positions. And boy, it got close here at pit out. Now at pit in, or at least that direction, let's go to Gary Gerald.
Actually, we've gone back into the paddock area. This is the transporter for Ganassi Racing. Chip Ganassi has just come out. Alex Zanardi is secreted back in there, and I think Chip is going to be the spokesman for this crew. They are talking and doing different interviews of the internationals. The Canadian broadcast crew has them right now, and I don't know if we can get a signal from behind this transporter or not, but we'll be sure and try to get a word from Chip Ganassi as well. But he was very angry when he came back to try to console his driver, who's been, as we told you, on such a tremendous tear in the last 6 events. Started from the pole position. The rookie driver set this thing on fire, and he's had that incident. And I have never seen any kind of emotion like that out of Alex Zanardi since he's joined the IndyCar ranks. Not anything close. Well, I think we're going to go green, so we get a word with Ganassi. We will.
And we do go green, Gary. Take a look.
Look at that, Alan.
Junior jumps him coming in.
He got him on the restart in a place you wouldn't think to pass. He really came out and pulled a whole shot out of that hairpin.
Is that pacing on a road course? Al just getting it exactly right coming off the corner?
He got it exactly right, and he had the temperature in his tires. Looked like Jimmy was a little too cautious there. Oh, puff of smoke from Allenser Jr. right there. Can't do too much of that. But Jimmy's got to be really smart now. He's got to just hang on there with little Al. He's still in a good position points-wise. Don't forget, Al's now in 3rd spot. Jimmy's in 4th. He'd still be okay with the points if they stopped at this moment.
All right, while we watch this, let's go back to Gary.
Chip Ganassi, what were you able to tell or try to console your driver?
Well, obviously, Gary, it was an unfortunate incident. I mean, you know, when you have these back markers not giving way to the leader of the race, I don't know what this racing is coming to, but I mean, we have to get, it was obviously an unfortunate incident.
Does this detract at all now from the business of trying to clinch a championship with your other driver, Jimmy Vasser?
No connection.
None whatsoever.
We're out to win it now.
All right. Thank you, Chip.
I think the word he was looking for was devastating, destroyed his chances.
Well, don't forget, they have a potential. If Jimmy's out in front, he still has a potential to have had a 1st and 2nd in the championship. He wants the best, plus there's Rookie of the Year honors. There's so much at stake with an incident like that he's obviously devastated. But what he's got to do right now is put that behind him, and then he's got to go out there and just focus now on Jimmy Vasser and win that championship if they can.
Andre Ribeiro, who was running in the top 10, had a drive-through penalty as a result of driving over a hose during his pit stop.
And look at that. Look who's right there at the back of that group. Right now in that red and white car is Allenser Jr. He's pulled out a little bit on Jimmy Vasser, who we just saw go through the screen right there. And he's closing on Bobby Rahal and Michael Andretti.
Paul Tracy on the move. Parker Johnstone looking for a place to race. The order is Andretti, Rahal, Unser Jr., Vasser, Herta, Christian Fittipaldi, Scott Pruitt, Adrian Fernandez, Greg Moore, and Robbie Gordon, the top 10. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. You know, Danny, here's what concerns me, though. If Zanardi was so fast on this course, and the teammate, Jimmy Vasser, has a theoretically identical car set up acceptably to his liking, then why did little Al get so far ahead once he got around him? Because that's a pretty good interval now.
Well, it could have been the tires. It could have been Jimmy thinking like, hey, I'm not going to worry about this. He's got me back there. Look at that. He's not that far in front of me. Get my car back up. Sometimes drivers don't get the tire temperature up on those yellow laps as much as the other guy does, and he jumps off, and it takes him a lap or two to get his temperature back up. Don't forget, Al Unser Jr. has got to win this thing to really have a shot at that championship. If Jimmy's sitting right there, he's being smart. He's thinking, hey, he's right there in front of me. He's only going to get 2 more points than I do right now. That's not enough for him.
Well, in the fight for the championship right now, Vassar does not have a position that would give him the championship as he leads here today. If you did the points in running, then Vassar is actually only 19 ahead of Unser and 21 ahead of Michael Andretti. So Michael's position at the front is drawing him further into that fight, and it's tightening the whole thing up.
I agree with you there, but if he can come away with a 3rd or a 4th place, and those guys are only 3rd and 1st, they don't gain as many points, obviously, as if one of them was to win it and he doesn't finish the race. He's got to be smart. He's got to finish this race, and in the position he's in right now, I'd take it, because then it puts the pressure on them for Laguna Seca that they have to win the race just to win the championship.
But it does put the whole battle within a win of the race at Laguna Seca.
Paul, I think we can talk about this until this race is over and come up with every scenario. But as we saw, all it takes is one quick little action by a situation that happened to Zanardi, and the whole thing goes out the window anyway.
Well, we've got both Grant Leonard and Russ Thompson up here in the booth calculating all that, and the pencils are flying with both of them trying to run all of the scenarios within the championship. Michael Andretti has picked up the lead on the crash with Alex Zanardi. Don't forget Sunday Night Baseball, the game of the week on ESPN. Los Angeles Dodgers take on the Philadelphia Phillies, and that, of course, will come from Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. The Dodgers are in the hunt for the NL West title, just behind the Padres. Nothing changes back at the Molson Indy, except the leaders once again have to deal with Hero. They do so. Michael gets by, Ray Hall gets by. But what of that Italian last seen as a very, very hot-tempered? Well, maybe he's calmed down a little, has he, Gary?
He's changed clothes. He's come out. Alex Zanardi, have you ever been as angry in your racing career? And tell us why and what happened.
No, I've never been that angry, because we work hard. We deserve that race. We had a lot of bad luck on Friday, and here I am talking to you.
What happened now? Was there an earlier incident where you almost made contact? Was it the same car in a lapping process?
No, I didn't have any close contact with anybody, because I was trying just to be careful. I knew my car was performing so well that I could pull away again. I lost more than 2 seconds just in one lap behind PJ, and then almost other 2 seconds the following lap. I tried to pass him a couple of times, didn't work. Then that particular lap, I knew he was not going to let me go, so I brake even earlier, and it just stopped in the middle of the circuit, and even God wouldn't have had able to avoid the accident.
You're both rookie drivers in this series. Will you go talk to him when this race is over?
Wouldn't make any difference. I think it's not up to me to take a position or to do any kind of action. I'm a driver. I'll do my job as best as I can. I hope to be back in Laguna and do a good job there.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Well, his definition of close and mine are apparently a little bit different, too. I thought he was close about 7 times before he got there. Did you see that maneuver with Robbie Gordon and Magnussen in the group?
Yeah, and Magnussen, or was that Christian? It was so tight. No, it's Jan Magnussen. Look at that, locked in, get it, turn, stop, and look who benefits from it all. Paul Tracy slips right underneath him in that red and white car.
Magnussen started 19th, is now 11th. Golly, that was Hero's car in the middle of that again, too.
Well, I don't know what Hero's problem is today, but he's definitely got a problem with the car because he's being lapped at a pretty rapid rate. Every about 4 or 5 laps, they seem to be on him again, and I don't think there's some.
Well, what's the matter with Greg Moore?
Oh, and you know, this is critical because he was in that championship battle for the Rookie of the Year honors with Alex Zanardi, and if we get these big puffs of smoke, yeah, he's got a big problem there.
Officials will display the black flag, advising him to come in. Again, a crowd down at the hairpin. Greg Moore will have to come in. Grew up in the suburbs here of Vancouver. Growing up for the 21-year-old was not so long ago. Ribeiro, Johnstone.
Oh, he stopped there. Now,
did he get him? No, he didn't get him.
Oh, but look at, but then what did he stop for? And then Parker stops. Well, maybe they were just being polite to one another. Both of them had some incidents at Elkhart Lake, and of course Andre's under that fairly heavy fine.
Adrian Fernandez with Moore behind him, but has Moore cleaned up now?
No, he's
not at all.
smoking.
Which means that he has gone past the black flag once. So next time he will be able to come in. He's allowed 3 laps to respond to it, but he would have just seen it on that pass down the pit
on that
straight.
lap. And what happens too is sometimes if they think they know what the problem is, they'll go a lap or 2 to give the crews time to get prepared for that, so they can get their tools or get whatever they think they might have to change.
Well, my question now as it becomes more prominent is whether or not he'll make it there. Looks like he will, though.
He certainly doesn't look like he's slowing down any. He's going to go another lap. He's missed the pit entrance.
And black flag comes out again to him. There you see it, Jan.
Well, the reason is because there's a little bit of confusion here in the Players Foresight team, and that is that at first they called him in to acknowledge the black flag, but then I was standing right next to the crew and they said, don't come in, stay out, stay out. That's because the data acquisition people were trying to get the final read on the car before they brought him in. They saw nothing wrong on their screen, but now IndyCar is going to force them to bring Greg Moore here onto pit road.
Well, let's see now. I'll take what the computer tells me as opposed to a plume of smoke at the back of the car.
Well, it just still gives him time to get ready, but don't forget they'll come to a point, as you said, well, they'll just stop scoring him. If he wants to stay out at his own risk, that's his deal, but they just stop scoring him. But he'll be in. They just want to get ready for him.
And as you said, yeah,
here he comes. Here he comes. Yep. He's right up the pit lane now.
And as you suggested, it gives them more time to be prepped, and they're looking at the telemetry to see if they can find out what the issue is there.
Because if they can change something, they want to spend the least amount of time as possible.
Here he is, Jan.
Well, the first thing they're going to do is just do a standard pit stop. You can see they're putting fuel in the car.
Now they're shutting them down.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. The IndyCar officials have said, no way. We're not letting you back out. So now Greg Moore will shut down the power plant, and they'll have to look to see what the trouble is here at the back of the car.
I saw that towel come over the back. Does that mean they're throwing in the towel?
We're all reaching today. Well, Greg Moore, local favorite here, his home track, falls out of the run. Michael Andretti continues to lead, and the top of the order does not change. Magnussen sits down at the hairpin backwards. He was racing with Robbie Gordon, battling for 10th. Gordon and he got together. Gordon was able to continue on, but it looks like Magnussen may not have any power. Here's how it happened, Danny.
Well, here he comes, and Robbie comes in there all locked up. Look at that, car's moving all around. Yancey, no, he doesn't see him. Boom, taps him around. He never even saw him. Robbie couldn't do anything. Where's Robbie going to go? He's going to shoot up the old escape road, I think, and go back around, but that...
Yeah, you can go right around that barrier and come out on the other side.
Yeah, it takes a little bit. You got to go through some stuff, but it's they want to get Yan out of the way there. Here's an onboard from Robbie. Comes in. Look, the smoke coming off that right front.
Totally.
He's already locked up, moving the wheels. Oh, he didn't want to hit him. Now, if he goes straight, he can go on around. See, he's frustrated. Not with Yan, he's frustrated with himself. He knew he made a mistake there.
A subtle little gesture, the lift of that hand. That's a meek, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And they were in a good fight. There he comes by. Yellow flag, of course, flies only in that area. Doesn't call a need for a full course. Al Unser Jr. is closing, and the interval seems to be separating between little Al and Vassar. Now, we've had so much discussion about what this ought to be titled. But what it is here's the points at the moment, okay? Al Unser Jr. chasing Vassar, 148, 129. Michael Andretti at 127. Zanardi, well, Zanardi's not going to be part of it because that's going to be the number, and it's over there. Christian Fittipaldi, of course, by not scoring the pole yesterday, he really didn't have a shot at it, but that took him out of the points fight as well. And it's a 19-point difference right now, and you need at least 23, or Vassar would need at least 23 to leave here with the championship.
Yeah, but let me tell you something.
But no cigar.
I tell you what, I wouldn't sleep as comfortable as I'd like to, but I'd sure like to go to the last race with a 19-point advantage. And they came away from that test with a pretty successful test out there. That puts more pressure on Al Unser Jr. and Michael than it does on Jimmy Vassar.
Jourdain just ahead of Michael. Al continues to close. When did Jourdain do run off the course? Must have. CBC's looking for him. Yep, Jourdain ran off. You got just a very quick glimpse of him there.
But look at this. This is the battle for first, second, and third. And look who's right there. That's Jimmy Vassar in fourth. He's in the catbird seat a little bit. He can sit there and watch him, wants him to battle a little bit. And I think he probably wouldn't mind seeing him getting into a very heated battle so he could close up on that gap a little bit.
Or better yet, just use up the race cars of first, second, and third. Jan Beekes, Greg Moore today not very happy.
Yeah, that's true, Paul. He's now out of the car. Greg, at first we thought it might be engine related. Looks like it's near the gearbox.
Yeah, I guess the output flange that connects the drive shaft to the transmission broke, and it's just our bad string of bad luck is keep going. And you know, hopefully it's done now. It's disappointing though here in Vancouver. We want to do well at home. The whole players team was excited. We were just doing our job and just driving around. Picked off a couple guys in the pits, and we were just biding our time.
Tell us about track conditions. Before the race, there was a lot of concern about pickup. Is it bad offline right now, or is it still pretty good?
I think it's pretty good the way it is. I mean, it's the big issue right now is braking, because a lot of people are flat spotting the inside front tire under braking, and I think that could be the outcome of the race.
Well, Greg Moore, unfortunately, now is just going to be a spectator here on the day named in his honor, Paul.
And the crowd was very responsive to about everything Greg did on the racetrack this weekend, really cheering him on. Great crowd here today. This race, which has a record crowd this weekend, always is the largest sporting event in Canada. In fact, the basketball stadium, the football stadium, both adjacent here, the GM place and BC place. If you filled them both on the same day, you still wouldn't match this crowd.
No, they get a great draw here. I'd sure like to have the Molson concession at this place.
Now the official's going to restart Magnuson and get him going again. It's taken a while, though, and obviously he's fallen well behind. Brian Herta. Let's go Stefan Johansson. As they do get Magnuson started. That breakup again as the bridge is overhead, because the signal for the onboard camera fires from the car up to a helicopter hovering overhead and then down to be communicated by satellite out globally now. ESPN reaching so many parts of the globe. So Johansson now has to set up and chase Gordon. Third place, Al Unser Jr. from Bobby Rahal. Camera tucked up just under the wing. 1, 2, and 3. They stay at about the same interval, Jan.
Mauricio Gugelmin came into the pits. We may be seeing some attrition starting here. They are trying to change many of the electrical pieces. In fact, we can see them changing the spark plug wires. They're going to change the electrical boxes. So Mauricio Gugelmin sits in the car while they go to work on his Ford Cosworth to try and get something going here in the electrical department. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Jan Magnuson is in. The Hogan Penske team looking it over, as well as Dick Perry and Gene Axtell, the IndyCar officials. The concern is at the right rear. The tire was shredded. They've changed it. Apparently the suspension's okay, and he's gone. He's back in the race.
Al Unser Jr. all over the back end of Bobby Bobby Rahal right now. First, second, and third still the battle. Jimmy Vasser looking for a championship. Not in the position right now as he sits back in fourth at the Molson Indy. From the Glen Abbey Golf Course in Oakville, Ontario, the Golf PGA Tour Belt Canadian Open. Tiger Woods in only his second meet had a hole-in-one yesterday. Can Marco O'Meara do it once again this year? Join us on ESPN. The leaders once again running in traffic as we pass the halfway point here at the Molson Indy.
See, Michael's clear of those cars. Bobby Rahal stuck behind him. That'll give Michael a little bit of an advantage.
Michael now pulls out to almost 2 seconds ahead of Rahal. Davy Jones, of course, Delco car in the midst of all that. And Rahal tries to find it. Davy lets him have it. And Bobby Rahal now has to hold off the challenge of Al Unser Jr. Again, traffic is figured into this one, as it does so often here at Vancouver. But once he gets past, he's able to pull out on Little Al. Though, again, the lens on these cameras will foreshorten a little, and he's a lot closer in reality.
Right, and you can see him right
now
here.
He's really close.
He looks like, boy, he's really closing up under. And now Bobby will pull away as he accelerates out. Do you see how close he was to that,
yes, I did.
That wall? I mean, these guys are trying everything they know. Al knows he has to be up in the front at the top, not third with Jimmy in fourth. He's got to be in that first or second spot if he's got any chance of a championship.
IndyCar Race Control has now warned P.J. Jones, keep a better eye on your mirrors, not your ears, your mirrors, as you've been a factor in a couple things. So Race Control now warning him.
Well, one thing he can get a benefit from too, which I always like from my crew, is sometimes when a faster car is coming up behind you, that the crew actually warns you a little bit that they're right behind you, so you start paying attention more to your mirrors.
Again, everybody tight coming through the hairpin.
And guess who that slower car is? I mean, he's got to have a problem. You know, we talk about these slower cars and back markers and all that. You got to understand that when the field gets qualified, they're only separated by about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. These guys aren't real slow. They're just much slower than I mean, they're just a little bit slower, but it accumulates. Oh, and look at that. Scott Pruitt, but he didn't even look like he locked up. No. He looks like he's got a problem.
He's not in a hurry either.
No, something's gone wrong. He just pulled it off. He didn't come in there with them all locked up. And he's not going anywhere anyway.
Some interesting changes. Another Cosworth there. That's, of course, Adrian Fernandez lining up behind him now. He was just getting offline and running off the escape road. Some interesting off. Ribeiro in the hairpin.
Dangerous spot. Yeah. Oh. Look, his left front wheel is all askew there. So he's hit something. He's either hit somebody or the wall. He can't move.
There come the leaders. And that, of course, closes Jimmy Vasser up a little bit on more than a little bit. Closes him up right onto the rear of Rahal. But now they're going full course yellow. The pits are open, so they can stop. And the pace car will come out. And the field will bunch up once again. As if we needed something any tighter than we already have. It's still Michael at the top, followed by Bobby, Little Al, and the points leader, Jimmy Vasser. With the pits open, Michael comes in, Gary.
He is at the very first available pit box. What I'm wondering already is if this would be enough to go the distance. I don't think so. It's a great stop. About 12.5 seconds on my clock. Jan?
Well, we're watching Bobby Rahal, who just got here, and you'll be able to hear Michael Andretti go by why this stop is going on. There goes Michael Andretti. Bobby's up. Oh, they're waiting for all the fuel. Well, that answers your question. They would not wait for all the fuel if they thought they were going to make another stop. So Bobby Rahal did not pick up a position, but he did get all the fuel.
But I think he may have lost a position to Little Al. I think Little Al maybe got out of the pits in front of him. We're going to see right here.
Magnuson with a fire.
Magnuson's got a fire. Whoa.
Big
Look
fire.
At that. That's a big fire.
Oil fire on the car.
Yeah.
Probably a pop or something.
Right there. He just pulled off right there. I can smell it burning up here in the booth. booth. Look at that, a duel, man. He's got some horsepower. And Al Unser Jr. is going to pull in there where the safety crews are. That was pretty small, smart spot. He'll jump out of the car. Safety crews are right there. See the smoke coming up.
And Magnussen climbs out of the car. So he's all right. Jan Magnussen has a fire line up at the back of the car as he came down the front straight. He finally pulled off into this area. The safety crews were right there. The IndyCar safety team, they got the extinguishers on it. Jan climbs out of it, and so the day is over. But what could have been a little bit of a catastrophe, is there such a thing, a little bit, what could have been a catastrophe for Magnussen turns out okay, but I'll bet that car is really fried.
And while that was all going on, Al Unser Jr. beat Bobby Rahal out of the pit. So we have Michael, Little Al, Bobby, and Jimmy Vasser look like he got out right behind them. So this is shaping up to be awful exciting. Now Jimmy Vasser's got to worry a little bit more, because those two guys are the two guys chasing him the hardest at the moment, because his teammate Zanardi's out, and they're one car away from him being right behind him.
This, of course, is the reason for the full course yellow. Ribeiro with damage to the left front in the hairpin, so they bring out the pace car. And as soon as the field is passed, they will try to get Ribeiro out of there. What they had to do was respond to the fire first, which happened after this impact with the wall. Ribeiro is obviously all right, and the focus of attention shifted to Magnussen's car on fire.
Well, that, and they need, I would imagine they can't just pull that car out of the way. They have to get that thing up and out of the way because of that broken left front.
No, but you saw Magnussen walking through the background beyond the smoke there. But what they did is what would normally pull it out got dispatched on the fire. Now the safety team is there and
putting the hook through there so that they can pick that car up, I would imagine. They're getting Andre out of the car, so they are going to pick it up.
So Ribeiro climbs out of his car, disabled with contact to the wall over in the hairpin turn, and the full course caution is out. Stops have been made. Michael Andretti continues to lead. So now, if you want to know everything there is to know about racing throughout the weekend, and so much going on this weekend, RPM Tonight will get you totally updated on the highlights from everything that matters this weekend in racing. ESPN Speed World's presentation of the Molson Indy from Vancouver, Canada is being brought to you by Toyota Motorsports. Our minds are always racing. By Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. For a retailer, call 1-800-TOP-PLUG. And by Firestone, America's tire since 1900. Well, how's this for a story? Jimmy Vasser comes into the pits, stops, and comes out a little too fast, Gary Gerald?
That is exactly the case, Paul. He was clocked at 67 miles per hour. It's a 60-mile limit. They'll sometimes give you the 5-mile-an-hour fudge factor, but 66 is what they call the drop-dead speed. Tom Anderson and the team down here calling the shots on the radio to Vasser won't comment to us. They are very angry, as you can well imagine. So much at stake, emotions running high. But when they go green, Jimmy Vasser will have to make a drive-through, not a stop and go, but a drive-through on pit road. It's obviously going to cost him several positions on the racetrack.
Yeah, and a drive-through here has essentially the effect of a stop and go because of the way the pits are positioned. But in the championship point, now a 8-point spread over the top three in the battle, Vasser, Unser, and Michael Andretti. Behind the pace car, of course, a double incident here. Andrew Ribeiro, disabled car in the hairpin. He got together with Blundell. No report on Blundell. And then, too, we had the Jan Magnussen fire, and Magnussen, of course, got out after they put the fire out. He is fine. Michael Andretti is the leader. Al Unser Jr. with a good stop into second place. Ray Hall is third. And then Jimmy Vasser. They will be all right together. Jan?
Well, the interesting thing is that, of course, we were watching Bobby Rahal as he made the stop, and we saw they took on all the fuel. And Danny, you called it. That's when Al Unser Jr. Hey, Al Unser Jr. is coming into the pits. They have decided he cannot make it. I was just going to say he didn't have enough fuel. And right on cue, of course, they didn't tell us. They don't want to give away the strategy. But Al Unser Jr. is coming in now to get the rest of the fuel. Oh, boy. He moved up the second spot. But boy, you know, it wasn't much fuel.
But I think this is a strategy. He's back out. He'll go around there. Everybody will have to stop. He'll be able to get back into the lead, okay, and then make a quick splash and go.
Well, let's watch him here. With the rules, can he come back into race order?
He can come back into race order.
Interesting.
Now, the interesting thing, guys, is that I think that Bobby Rahal has all of his fuel also. So he may be another person that can go all the way. There was no other reason for them to hold Rahal in until they saw all the fuel go into the tank.
Well, I may agree with you on that, Jan, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of laps left, and I'm not so sure they can go that many laps. There's 41 still to go. Now, maybe what little Al's doing is taking a chance there'll be another yellow. Whatever the case is, he can come in and make a splash. With Roger Penske calling it, who knows? He's a gambler.
Everybody stopped on 54. So Gary and Jan, let's start with Gary. Who can go to the distance? Everybody?
Well, I just came jogging down here to check on Michael Andretti. I got the eye of one of the guys who's on the computer, and I said, fuel, and he says, this is the big adventure, and he laughed. It doesn't tell me much, but it tells me that they got to be concerned. Now, I haven't been able to confirm that with team manager Lee White or Peter Gibbon. They're on the radio right now with Michael.
Jan, what about your area?
Well, I'm standing next to Roger Penske. Asked him if I could have a word. He gave me the one finger sign saying, just a second, he's talking to Al. But maybe he can answer that question for us. They're going to get the green next time by. Roger, obviously he wants to talk to Al first before he talks to us.
Yeah, it's at the point of the track where he can get direct communications with little Al as they come by on the pit straight.
Tell you what, guys, I'll update you when he gets done talking to Al.
All right, and what we'll do is we'll take a very quick break here, and when we come back, we'll be ready for the green flag in what has turned into a most fascinating race, not only for the race title, but the championship. Well, college football is underway, and it is on ESPN. And don't forget Notre Dame as they take on Vanderbilt on Thursday. Vanderbilt, of course, trying to make up for a season that saw just 2 wins last year. Well, this has gotten so fascinating.
It has, but we're talking about little Al and everybody's fuel. I think what we've forgotten is the story for me is Jimmy Vasser's in 3rd spot right now, is going to have to make a stop or a run through the pit and stop real quick. It's going to drop him to the back of this field. He's going to have to take a lot of chances to get back into a point-scoring situation.
And Al Unser Jr., of course, is, as we look at it, sitting back in the field. And was that Vasser that responded right there? Yes, it was. Vasser came in. Gary?
They're going to top off with fuel. What I'm not sure of, I think they may still have to make a pass-through. I'm not certain about that.
Well,
but he's gone now, and he's got the fuel that'll carry him to the distance.
That would be the Nigel Mansell rule from Australia a couple of years ago, where they said you can't service the car while responding to a black flag. So they've serviced the car. Now they're going to have to come in again.
Well, I don't know if that works. He also didn't take the green. I think he has to take the green and make his stop. I'm not sure. But don't forget, with the new rules, I'm not in that new penalty about it's not a stop and a go. It's just kind of a wave that drive through that he may be able to take fuel.
Jan?
Well, that same argument is going on here with Roger Penske and the IndyCar officials. He ran over there immediately when he saw Jimmy Vasser get service and said, hey, he's got to come in again. That's not fair. You can't do it. You got to bring him in again. So the argument continues here in Penske Racing.
Well, I think we all agree that he has to come in again. But what advantage might they have gained, Gary?
Well, the team is fully expecting that he will, in fact, have to make a pass-through again.
So why? Why would you do it in that order?
Maybe because Roger Penske did it.
Minimum
took on the fuel. This time he can come through kind of hot, just touch the wheels and go. So maybe they topped it up like Roger Penske did with Al Unser Jr. He's going to the back of the field anyway.
You've got the fuel. It minimizes the exposure. Jimmy is now in contest with nobody, well behind the rest of the pack racing together as Rahal continues to work on Michael for the lead.
As a driver, I'm really glad that somebody in the pits is thinking about all this and working out the strategy. Can you imagine trying to figure out exactly all this stuff while you're out there trying to drive the race car and pass people?
Well, but yeah, you bring up a great point. How confused can a driver get in the middle of all that? You get what seems like an off-the-wall order. Do you just obey it, or are you in there arguing? How do you deal with that?
I think that unless you really see something that is terribly, terribly wrong, you have to obey that order, and you've got to trust what the guy in the pits is doing, is calling. You got to have your faith in him. You got to have a lot of faith in a guy like Roger Penske. He's won a lot of races, a lot of championships.
We've been talking about the championship. Here is Jimmy Vasser, clear track ahead, and he comes in answering the black flag.
Okay, now this will be where he just does his little drive-through. See, he didn't stop in his pits.
No, he doesn't have to, though. No. Drive-through, Gary?
No, just a drive-through. No stop whatsoever. Just right on down the road at 60 miles an hour.
And now he can throttle it up and try and catch up. Point, I think we ought to make on the race itself. Michael leads, Rahal second, but with all of this happening, Christian Fittipaldi is now third, Fernandez is now fourth, and Brian Herta is fifth.
But as
there are the top cars.
But as we see, this is going to come into a lot of pit strategy when these guys all have to stop, and those other guys got Al Unser Jr. and Jimmy Vasser have full tanks of fuel. My only concern for Jimmy is that he is now at the back of that field. He's going to have to take some chances to dive through that traffic.
Right behind Brian Herta as we ride with Christian Fittipaldi, who started 14th, is now third, is Paul Tracy. That will be important to keep in mind because of the similarity between his car and Al Unser Jr.'s. Little Al is further back yet. There's Tracy. There's Robbie Gordon. There's Little Al and Robbie Gordon. Jan Beekes?
Well, we're going to talk to Richard Buck because we know how busy Roger is trying to make all these race strategy calls. First of all, can you make it to the end with the fuel you have?
Well, right now that's what we're gambling on. Obviously, it's a cat and mouse game we're having to play right now with Vasser. He's the one that we're racing. It's going to get to a point here where it could go green the whole way. If it does, all the rest of the guys are going to have to stop on the green. That'll put us out front.
Are you guys now satisfied with the way that he has come in and honored the penalties? I know, obviously, when he came in and got service, you wanted to make sure he did have that drive-through.
Well, we're still investigating that right now. We got to get a good look at the rule book and make sure everything was done, to the rules. So, but right now it looks like they are.
Remember, guys, part of the strategy is go as fast as you can and then make sure the other guys don't go faster than they can.
Yeah, Richard Buck, go with your instincts. I think you've got it figured.
Well, that's right, but he said something interesting there about Al Jr., that they're playing cat and mouse and that he figures that Vasser's going to have to stop for fuel. Jimmy put fuel in after Little Al, so he's got more fuel on board than Al Unser Jr. does.
Robbie Gordon and Al Unser Jr. currently locked in this fight for ninth. Want to make sure that I identify Al Unser Jr. correctly, because we were talking about Tracy earlier and may have slipped on the two positions. Tracy is up further in sixth place, and both of these cars are, of course, caught up behind the Toyota. That neat camera, brand new view from Robbie Gordon's car down the pit straight into turn one. Here's Unser Jr. just ahead, slamming down for the hairpin now.
Trying to find a way around P.J. Jones there. He doesn't want to take any chances. He also has probably got his fuel mixture turned down a little bit, trying to conserve a little fuel.
And an interesting point just brought up. Robbie Gordon leaving for NASCAR next year. Al Unser Jr. fighting for the championship. Robbie's not in that fight. He's right behind you. How comfortable are you going to be?
Well, Robbie's still running a race. He still wants to do the best he can at this place. I don't think he's thinking about NASCAR, but I don't think he's as concerned when he makes a pass whether it's all as clean as maybe Al Unser Jr. is.
Heating up again at the front as Michael Andretti now has Rahal working him pretty hard. Third is Christian, then Adrian, Herta, and Paul Tracy. Robbie Gordon is battling with Unser Jr. Back at the Molson Indy, ready to go green. What a run this should be. As green comes out, Michael Andretti the leader, then Rahal. Christian Fittipaldi in third. But the key, of course, in the battle of the championship is Vassar and Unser Jr. Unser Jr. in 8th, Vassar in 11th.
Oh, look at Tracy got squeezed over there.
And you see little Al right behind him. That's the thing that he can't get caught up in.
Little Al trying to get around his teammate. Looks like Paul Tracy's going to, I think that might have been a little team orders there. Let him get in front of you. Get that one car behind. You're not in the hunt for the championship.
And what we had was a full course yellow as a result of Juan Fangio got sideways on the racetrack, and that brought out the full course yellow. And of course, a full course yellow helps with the fuel. Paul Tracy, keep an eye on him.
Sideways, bang, he hits the wall there. Left front, left rear. Well, maybe that's one of the reasons he moved over. Somebody going up in the pit.
Tracy going for the pits.
Paul Tracy, he's obviously banged that thing harder than he wants. He's up in the pits.
And that move, of course, is going to help Al Unser Jr. It's one more spot.
And Vassar is up in 8th behind Paul Tracy, according to our scoring.
Keep an eye on this racetrack. We're looking for Vassar. There's Unser. There it is. Absolutely.
He's back in the hunt.
So Vassar gets a great start. Of course, the Canadian television covering this, and they're focusing up on the front. I'm not so sure anybody would have gotten that, though, because Vassar really jumped through there.
He must have gotten a great go there. Let me tell you something. This makes it awful interesting. Paul Tracy's day is done. Getting out of the car, he obviously, you can see a little of the suspension. I saw a couple of the arms there were bent, so he obviously got in the wall harder than we thought.
75 laps complete.
What this also does, Paul, is interesting. Those guys stopped. They got fuel later than everybody, that being Al Unser Jr. and Jimmy Vassar. That means at some stage where they can run their fuel mixture more rich, or richer, more rich than the other guys can, because they don't have to conserve as much fuel. So at the end of the race, they might have a little bit more horsepower than some of those other cars.
Watch and chew for that interval behind little Al, and trying to get a glimpse of Jimmy Vassar, who should be closing in. 25 laps to go, 75 complete. The data feed coming over to the graphics generators at the television compound apparently had a hiccup. It's back now, and hopefully we'll be able to recycle it, reboot it, and start putting in the running positions in the race. Yeah, there it is. We can do that for you now. Very sensitive, these little computers, you know.
Jimmy Vassar not quite as close as he would like to be, but his main concern is Al Unser Jr., who's out there right in front of him. He doesn't have to be right behind him, but he'd sure like to be, because don't forget, Michael Andretti is still in this.
But look, Danny, he's closing. He's catching Al.
Well, he might be catching Al because of that traffic in front of him.
Whatever the reason.
Whatever the reason is. But he does not want Al to slice through those guys, get a couple extra positions and a few more points. And he also has to be somewhat concerned about Michael Andretti, who I believe has probably led the most laps now in this race. That's 1 point, and he's out in the front. That's 20. That's 21 points. Jimmy Vassar's back in a spot right now where I believe he gets about 5 points for 8th spot.
Gary, Paul Tracy out?
Yes, he is. Paul, damage there on the suspension, the left front. What were you trying to accomplish, and you got out and brushed the wall? What was the setup?
Well, we're going to go with the options. We blistered the primes in the middle there, and that's, I guess, what everybody was having problems. We were in good shape with the Marlboro car, and just got to be tight quarters out there. Herta checked up. He looked like he made some contact with Fernandez, and I just kind of ran out of room and just touched the wall and just put a little kink in the A-arm, and something we can't run with.
In your estimation, does anybody have an advantage out there among the guys now battling for the win?
Well, it's tough to say. I couldn't really see the front at all, but Michael looks pretty strong. So, you know, he's always pretty strong in Canada. So it looks like he's going to be the guy to beat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Jimmy is right there behind Al Unser Jr. now. Okay, tracking the points at the moment. Andretti is past Unser Jr. in the points into second place. But, well, the way they're running right now, you're going to end up with a battle royal at Laguna Seca. It's not going to be decided today unless something remarkable happened here, and remarkable things have happened here. So, three-way fight for the championship, and it looks like it's going to go on to Laguna Seca, California, 1 week from today.
I'll tell you, if I was Jimmy Vasser and I had the opportunity, I'd sure like to pass Al Unser Jr. or maybe one of those other cars in front of me. That little break would help him, because a 13-point lead on Michael Andretti going into Laguna Seca is not the most comfortable lead you'd like to have.
So now moving to the closing stages of the race, 78 laps complete of the 100. Michael Andretti picks up that point for leading the most laps. It's been an interesting fight. You like boxing? On the deuce, the WBO Junior Lightweight Championship, as Rogelio Tour takes on the challenger, Jose Vita Ramos. If you don't have ESPN2, give your local cable operator a call, or your satellite program operator. What a fight we have here. BC Place of Vancouver just ahead as Jimmy Vasser works the turn 1 area. Now heading down turn 2 and looking for a hairpin. 3 fighters now in the championship battle. Vasser, Andretti, and Unser. Alex Zanardi, the pole sitter and early leader, eliminated when he got into the wall, not only from the race, but from any chance at the championship. So you think, Danny, if you're Jimmy Vasser, you want to pass Little Al, or would you just stay there?
Well, I tell you, wanting to and actually making the attempt are two different things. I'd sure want to, because that would sure help eliminate him from the championship hunt. But I certainly wouldn't take a chance on that pass unless I could be 100% sure it was clean, because I wouldn't want to eliminate myself out of that hunt.
Michael Andretti, the leader, still running fairly hard, Gary Gerald.
Checking on that fuel situation, Paul. Remember, they told us it was going to be a great adventure. Well, I just checked back with one of the engineers, and he told me, he said, we were going to have to go 46 laps. We were going to make it, but it was not going to be fun. The yellow, however, he says, has taken away any doubt. We're okay. They don't have to stop, and they were very adamant about it.
We were on board a second ago with Christian Fittipaldi. The Newman Haas team going into next year going to change chassis over to the new Swift chassis, but the good news for them is that their sponsors are all solid with them for next season. Johansson out of the run.
Well, I'd just like to go back to one thing. 46 laps seemed a long way. The one thing that is critical, they probably could have made that, but it's how strong can you run the fuel mixture. By that I mean 100% is what you want all the time if you can, because it gives you the most power. As you start turning that down, you're really dialing down horsepower. And at the end of this race, I got to believe that Jimmy Vasser and Al Unser Jr. have the most fuel on board.
To be that if we lean down the car to conserve fuel, a manual lean, not a computer assisted lean, you ran into the risk of leaning it down so much you burned the engine down because you didn't have the cooling effect of the alcohol on the cylinder walls. I assume the computer beats that problem.
It does. That used to be a problem. It's still of some concern if you were to run it at 90% wide open all the time, but that's not a factor with the computers. They help to adapt all that stuff now with the and don't ask me how that works. It's pretty magical, the stuff, and those engineers usually don't tell you how exactly it's working.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted to know, is the software mapping program. I figured you'd have that in your wallet.
You better talk to one of those guys.
Michael Andretti dominating the race here. Again, hero, and I'm a little surprised. I guess they have to give him every opportunity to stay on the racetrack, but you wonder what goes through the officials' mind, and we do have a new chief steward. Whoa, DeFerrin?
He was locking him up. He got past, I believe, Brian Herta there. He passed Brian Herta. That, I believe, is for a spot.
Dennis Swan taking over as the chief steward of the series at the end of the year.
Look at this. It looks like Brian Herta is slowing some. And look who's going underneath him.
Here comes Al. Here comes Vassar.
Little Al got by
here.
Oh, and who's in the mix? Hero.
And Vassar was trapped, though.
He was trapped, but we'll have to see how that played out. But that hurt Jimmy a little bit because for sure there's little Al. He got
still trapped.
Vassar's trying, but Brian Herta chopped across him. He's got to be careful here. But Brian's obviously got some kind of a problem to drop 2 spots in about a half a lap. He might have just had that problem right there at those particular. He might have had a gear problem or something. But Jimmy can't let that go.
It startled DeFerrin. It's slowing Vassar. Herta seems to be back on song, though.
Well, this is where he had the problem before, but he doesn't seem to have it coming out of there now.
Jimmy got a little sideways off of that corner.
Yeah. I'm not so sure that Brian didn't have a gear problem there.
You know, we've been talking about whether or not Jimmy wants to go forward. He certainly doesn't want to go backward at all. Well, Brian Herta, after a little hiccup in the run, now seems to be back at full song. Michael Andretti is still the leader, but Jimmy Vassar has lost 1 position to Al. And what a seat Mario Andretti has, watching not only from the pits, but on the big screen just across the track. And we know that that was neat. We know that the race would not end now, but we're tracking the points, and we'll keep track of that for you. We were going to go to that, but first let's go to Jan.
Well, Stefan Johansson has climbed out of the car, like you said, Paul. Stefan, what knocked you out? I know you had a tough day out there.
Well, we had a multitude of dramas before, but what really knocked me out there was myself. I made a small mistake going into the hairpin. I had a lot of push going through the hairpin. I was trying to bring the car a little bit tighter to make it around. And I just clipped the inside wall with my right rear tire, and it was enough to bend the rear suspension.
Yeah, a lot of guys, Paul, are saying the track's starting to slicken up, so it's tough out there as we get towards the end. Thanks, Stefan.
Driving for Tony Bentonhausen, still looking for that elusive first win. There's the championship at the moment. And with that last maneuver, Al picks up a couple of points. Boy, this is tight. They're going. You think they're nervous now? Wait till next Sunday. Our CBC coverage here. So Jimmy Vassar still being held up by Brian Herta. And he's closing now, it seems, back on Al. Boy, fascinating. I wonder what the problem was. So the championship fight continues while Michael continues his lead. It's Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Christian Fittipaldi, Adrian Fernandez, Brian Herta. Look, wrong place. Andretti, Rahal, Fittipaldi, Fernandez, DeFerrin, Unser Jr., then Herta. He can't be satisfied just to stay there. He must not be able to catch it.
I think that Brian must have had a problem. Like a gear problem or something just there at that one time, because 2 people got by very quickly.
88 laps complete, 12 to go. Jan, have you been able to figure out what Herta's problem might have been, or was there one?
Well, I think there was, Paul, but it's not mechanical. It turns out he got stuck in traffic and got caught behind Hiro Matsushita, and that slowed his momentum, and he may have even got offline and got some pickup. So it's nothing mechanical. Like you said, he is back up to speed, but sometimes, as Danny can tell you, if your rhythm is broken, it takes a while to get going again.
Well, I can see that on the Gilles de Ferrin, but after that, little Al passed him a couple of corners later, and you know, he had gotten through there cleanly.
I was going to ask you, is momentum that critical on a road course?
It's important, but I don't think it's that critical. If he had done it just at the exit of the corner, but it wasn't until the next hairpin before he got by him. So I don't think it was that critical. And if you had lost your momentum, and it was that, and you knew you just lost your momentum, you would have blocked little Al going into that hairpin.
Adrian Fernandez fighting with Jill DeFerrin, and you can't make the corner doing that.
Whoa, and that's for a spot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good for little Al and for Jimmy Vasser, but particularly little Al because he starts jumping up in the points a little bit closer.
So 10 laps to go now in the run. Andretti, Rahal, Fittipaldi, all evenly spaced. Jimmy Vasser trying to work on Brian Herta. Battle for position, battle for 6th, but also
let's see right here going down. Yes, but going down here in the straightaway, he's just not close enough. He closes in there under braking, but that's not close enough to take a dive underneath him. He's got to be right behind him when he comes into that braking area to get by him.
Power comparisons. Look at Jimmy. Now he's getting a little frustrated. That's a Mercedes-Benz ahead. Honda in Jimmy's car.
Alexer Jr. is now up to 5th spot because of Fernandez's mistake, but Jimmy Vasser moves into 7th. But as they get closer to the top, of course, they get more points for those positions.
Jan Bigas.
Well, you talk about the power plants, Paul, between the Mercedes and the Honda. What Mercedes did in preparation for this race was they took their engines to a special dynamometer at the Mercedes factory at Stuttgart, Germany, where it actually runs an engine around the entire racetrack. It's known as a transient dynamometer. They can run the car and simulate lap after lap, try different aerodynamic loads and fuel settings, and that was what they chose to do for their testing prior to this race. Now, Honda has one of those, but it's in Japan, and it's being moved at the moment. So Honda does not have the opportunity to use one, so they just do it merely by track testing.
Yeah, we visited the one in Stuttgart, and it's really, I mean, you can take the tape out of the car, load it onto the dynamometer, and run exactly the same race and see what the engine will do. Jimmy Vasser looking for a championship, isn't going to find it. 8 laps to go. Major League Baseball, a Labor Day triple header. Astros take on the Cardinals, the Yankees, and the Athletics, and the Red Sox versus the Mariners. But right now, it's auto racing. And it's a fight for the championship that looks like it will go on 1 week further, as we're now into the final laps of the run here with 7 to go. And there is a report now coming from the race officials that Michel Jourdain hit the wall, and they're checking to make sure that he didn't leave something on the racetrack that would be a hazard to someone else. And we'll keep track of that for you. There's DeFerrin, scheduled to make an announcement next week as to what he will be doing in the ensuing season. Best guess, of course, is going over to Walker Racing and keeping the Honda engine with him. Jimmy Vasser continues to work on Brian Herta, battle for position. So the positions at the moment at the Molson Indy, Michael, followed by Bobby Rahal, then Christian Fittipaldi, then Jill DeFerrin, Unser Jr., and that battle that we watch now, Brian Herta and Jimmy Vasser. 6 laps to go. Looks like Vasser wants to play a very careful race. 7 to go.
Well, in his position right now, he still gets 6 points for that 7th spot. He does not want to throw those 6 points away, particularly with Michael Andretti going to get 21 and Allenser Jr. 10.
With some traffic ahead. PJ. Remember how this car figured into Zanardi's race earlier on. Michael comes inside him. Jones sees him there. He's passed. 5 to go.
Paul, if fuel was ever going to come into play, it'll be in the next couple of laps.
So a lot of factors being played here. No one in contention at the front. Michael Andretti has a 5-second lead on second place Bobby Rahal. Christian Fittipaldi equal separation back. Jimmy Vasser still working on Herta, but not trying real hard. We'll be back for the checkered flag. Michael Andretti has been the key factor in this race, picking up the lead when Alex Zanardi got into the wall. And it looks like he is going to go on to a win here. Again, the points count. Look how tight that battle is. Vasser 142. Andretti comes forward into second place. Al Unser Jr. 125 and does that without yet scoring a victory this year. Was it Tom Sneva, the last guy to do that at the end of the 70s, about 78?
I believe so. And of course, look at this. Jimmy Vasser's right behind Brian Herta there. Oh, he was right up underneath him. Did you see how close he was there?
So Jimmy Vasser apparently feeling the pressure of the position.
He'd really like to have that spot, but he's got to be very, very cautious here. He can't take a chance and throw away the points that he's got at the moment.
Flashing across the line once again.
Seems like that one area in there where Brian has some problems.
A gear?
Could be.
I mean, that would happen if one of the gears in the box wasn't hooking up properly, and he has to jump over it.
Or if it's just, for some reason, the way the load is right there, he's going to take a look. Don't go unless you're sure. Careful there. See, he wanted to be sure. He does not want to do what we saw there earlier, get tapped out of there and drop out of the points he's got. He wants to be 100% sure he's got a clean shot on him.
2 to go for the leader, Michael Andretti. But let us remember the last lap of the last 2 races and what a difference it has made. Incidents in those last laps. Is Jimmy Vasser, by Rahal gets past, is Jimmy Vasser, by trying to push Herta, inviting such a disaster? For long, we're going to know the answers to all of it. White flag should come out next time by for Michael Andretti. Next week, of course, we will have the coverage of the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey from Laguna Seca, and that will determine the IndyCar Championship. What a great run as the championship goes all the way to the final race with a 3-way battle. Onto the pit straight, and there's the white flag waving for Michael Andretti. Back-to-back wins is what it's going to look like for him. Bobby Rahal not in contest, and they're separated by Parker Johnstone. But Rahal's on the move.
Rahal's close. Parker saw him, let him through, doesn't want to get in the way of a race. But I think Michael's still a little too far out in front to make an attempt.
On this, the final lap, Andretti leading Rahal. Christian Fittipaldi is third. DeFerrin sits fourth. Then Unser Jr., then Brian Herta being worked on by Jimmy Vasser. Rahal not in contest. Michael Andretti slamming down the gears now, makes the turn on to the pit straight, and the checkered flag lies just ahead as Michael Andretti takes his 35th career win, 5th win of the year, and a break any tie that he would have had with Vasser to this point. Most wins of the year, and 2nd in a row, and his 3rd victory here at Vancouver. Now we'll watch this, if Vasser's going to do it, and I don't think this is a time to give it a shot.
He was trying, but he just, in case Brian Herta made a mistake coming out of there and he could dive up underneath him, but wasn't meant to be.
Well, Mario Andretti wants his son take the wins. Talking to him now, Jan.
Yes, he is. He just finished talking to Michael. Mario, what kind of words of encouragement are you able to give him, and how exciting is this for you?
Well, he didn't really need any words of encouragement. I think he handles that himself. It was just a picture-perfect race. He drove like a real maestro now, and you know, it's wonderful to finish the season like this with a lot of excitement. And you know, let's face it, the points are not that close, but the situation is somewhat doable. So it's going to be exciting for Laguna Seca.
Well, thank you, Mario. As we were going for this interview, the crew actually pushed us out of the way. They wanted to get to the monitor so they could calculate the points going into Laguna.
Well, what a fascinating day. Bobby Rahal comes alongside of Michael Andretti the first time he's actually able to get there, and waves his congratulations over to him. So unofficially it's Michael, then Rahal, Christian Fittipaldi, Jill DeFerrin, Al Unser Jr., Brian Herta, Jimmy Vasser's last couple of laps bid does not work for him. Adrian Fernandez is 8th. Scott Goodyear driving for Derek Walker with a nice little run in 9th, and his teammate Robbie Gordon finishes in 10th. Michael Andretti wins it. The championship is still incredibly tight, and as Mario suggested, he will be going on along with the other two, Al Unser Jr. and Jimmy Vasser, to Laguna Seca, where they will determine this three-way battle for the championship. When we come back, we'll be talking with Michael Andretti. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Molson Indy from Vancouver has been brought to you today by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Controls volatility and fights vaporization. By Honda, who offers an impressive family of cars, sport utility vehicles, and minivans. And by Molson Ice. Step outside. Well, the IndyCar Championship will be determined next Sunday at the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, and part of the reason that it goes that far is Michael Andretti has won, Gary.
Thanks, Ty. Well, Paul, here's Michael Andretti, and I know it's been a tough day because you were hurting to begin with, but the most important thing now, your 5th win, the winningest driver this year, and still alive in a championship going to the last race. You've got to be one happy young man.
I am, and I'm very excited about Laguna. I can't wait now. We're going to be putting a little pressure on Jimmy now. The car's been running well. I think the car's going to run good at Laguna, and I'm very excited. The adrenaline carried me through this one. I was in a little pain, but nothing a little adrenaline can't cure.
What about the fuel situation now? You had 46 laps to go when you made your last pit stop. Could you have made it without the yellow flags, do you think?
Yeah, I was really conserving big time, and we were making the mileage to make it, so I think we would have been okay.
2nd place in the points. You got a week to think about Laguna Seca, and I'm kind of looking forward to this one, as I'm sure you and your crew are. The smile says a lot.
I'm really looking forward to it. You know, we have some momentum going with us, and Laguna's been a good place for me. I've had great memories there, so hopefully we'll be able to create some more.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Well, Jimmy Vasser has come here on pit road, and Jimmy, I can see how upset you are. Now, we know, obviously, that battle you had with Herta, but there's other things on your mind?
Well, the pit speed thing, you know, I had the button on, the light was on. There was some kind of a glitch in the software. You know, there's buttons to push in these things, and lights come on, and they're supposed to tell you what's going on, and obviously it didn't work. We shot me over the pit lane speed. Before I caught it, I was already doing 70. You know, to have something like that come in the way of the championship, too, is just a disaster. We didn't gain any spot on the track, and then, you know, Herta was slow on the track, and this place is very difficult to pass, and I'm racing with Junior with the championship, and he thinks he's got to block me. So, you know, I hope he feels like a hero today, but, you know, we're going to have to go and get him next weekend.
And as we look at the point, or the order of this race, we will be talking with Brian Herta in just a moment. But here is something to consider as you look down through the order and look ahead to the run at Laguna Seca. And that is quite simply that of the 3 guys in contention in the points championship, only Michael Andretti has actually won there. There is the points. Michael won twice at Laguna, 91 and 92. Vasser, Al Unser Jr. have not. Let's go to Jan.
Well, on the other end of pit road, Brian Herta, a tough race for you. An exciting race, you and Vasser at the end. Now, Vasser was not very complimentary at the end. What's your take on that battle?
Well, you know, I'm surprised. I was racing him for position hard. I know he's running for the championship, but, you know, I'm certainly not going to pull over and let him by. I thought I was, you know, trying to race clean. I was surprised that he was upset. I mean, he made it pretty clear on the cool-down lap. I'm disappointed that he felt that way.
Now, what happened during the race that dropped you back into his clutches? Because he looked so strong in the beginning.
I got heroed out there.
Now, a lot of people are talking about that. In fact, I believe that Ganassi Racing may have filed a protest in regards to that. A complaint, anyway. I shouldn't say a protest. What should be done when a car is that far off speed, do you think?
Well, you know, I think it's up to the chief steward to bring the car in. I mean, if the car is not competitive and he's creating a dangerous situation and affecting the outcome of the race, then he should be brought in, I think.
Now, one stage you slowed. We thought you might have had gearbox trouble. Is that true or not?
Well, I got stuck, I think, in between gears or something. Wouldn't catch for a second. Then luckily it caught up and, you know, ran good the rest of the race.
Well, you come down to Laguna Seca, Al Unser Jr., and now you've got Michael Andretti and Jimmy Vasser in front of you, but you're still alive. So what kind of thoughts are you going to carry into next week's season finale?
Well, you know, first off, I want to say hi to my kids, and I just, you know, it's going to go for broke. You know, we're to a point now where we can't back off at all. You know, the point race has tightened up immensely, and with Michael winning these last couple races, he's jumped up in there, and so you know, he's extremely tough. And you know, I'm 17 out of the lead, and so last race we're going to go for broke.
Pressure's on everybody. Should be fun next week. Thanks, Junior.
You betcha.
Well, there you've heard from the top guys in the battle coming up next, the season premiere of NFL Prime Time. And we'll go back and look at some of the highlights of this rather exciting day and say that we'll see you 1 week from today in Laguna Seca, California.